our first guest has been crisscrossing the country, getting his message out there and trying to convince voters that he is the man who should sit behind the resolute desk at the White House. His latest stop in the Hawkeye State, he spoke about states' rights and the ever-increasing power of the federal government. And we welcome to America right now North Dakota Governor and 2024 presidential candidate Doug Burgum. Governor, good to see you. Thanks for making time for us here at Newsmax.
Tom, good morning. Great to be with you always.
So we learned from the debate, Governor, you grew up in a town of about 300 people, and it seems that you are kind of carrying a torch for middle America, for rural America. We certainly need to be conscious of the state of our cities, but you want to make sure that rural America is not forgotten, and you're uniquely qualified to do that. What are some of the biggest issues right now that you don't think are getting enough attention facing smaller town America?
Well, Tom, of course, when we talk about the heartland of America, it's been a long time since there's been any representation. The elites on both coasts are trying to drive the agenda. We see it with this ruling now coming today with the White House trying to influence big tech companies, East Coast, West Coast, trying to suppress free speech. But here in the heartland, this is where we feed the world. This is where we fuel the world. And the folks that are out here, the energy workers, the farmers that are producing not only for America, helping to keep prices down, they're fighting every day against the Biden administration, which is doing everything they can to crush American agriculture, crush American energy, which is driving up inflation for every American.
Governor, I mentioned in my open that you were talking about states' rights the other day, and more people are coming to the realization that Washington has far too much power. What would you redirect back to the states to help reduce the power of the federal government and frankly, try to return it more toward the framework that was enshrined in the Constitution?
Well, Tom, exactly. Is that when I was an entrepreneur with a small startup, starting with 10 people and then building a 2,000-person global company, I had a front row seat on federal overreach. As governor of North Dakota, I have had a front row seat because every day the Biden administration is out of their lane, pushing stuff down on the people of America that's not part of it. The states created the federal government. The 13 states created the federal government. They delegated specific powers. It says it right in the 10th Amendment, only 28 words. These are delegated to the federal government. The rest is reserved to the states, or to the people. And we've got to get the federal government out of the job. They do have a job to do. And of course, some of that is monetary policy, some of it's national security. And these are things that the Biden administration is not doing because national security starts with border security. We've got an open border. It starts with energy security. They're killing U.S. energy. It starts with food security. Not making that happen either. So we've got we've just got to get the federal government to do its constitutional job and leave the rest for the states and the people.
Governor, speaking of the federal government and specifically the Biden administration, a recent Wall Street Journal poll showed that President Biden's approval rating very low when it comes to top issues like the economy, inflation, and the border that you just mentioned. Talk to us about your day one agenda, just briefly, on how you're going to restore confidence.
Well, first of all, we have to have someone in the White House that has the trust of the American people to restore trust in the institutions that we have. And, when you grow up in a small town and your whole life is built around the trust, the transactions, our family's been in the grain elevator business for 120 years. We're serving the same customers today from the same families that the great-great-grandparents did before. You build that trust one transaction at a time, day in, day out, month after month, year after year, decade after decade, century after century. We've got to get back to some of those basic neighbor helping neighbor, neighbors trusting neighbors approach. But first day in the White House, we've got to start selling energy to our friends and allies and stop buying it from adversaries. That's number one. These energy policies are empowering dictators, destabilizing the world, and then driving up inflation. Every American is paying too much for everything, starting with their food and their starting with food and with the gas they're putting in their car.
Yeah. Your biggest competition in this race and the biggest competition of all of your colleagues running on the GOP side, obviously, former President Donald Trump. Talk to us about the differences that you have from a policy standpoint with the former president. How would you approach things differently than he, since you've chosen to run against him?
Well, first of all, I would say, I come from a state where we have a a great relationship as a state with President Trump. North Dakota, I voted for President Trump twice. Now I'm running against him, in part because I think that competition is good for the Republican Party. I think competition is good for America. And I think it's good that we've got someone running for the White House. Every job I had growing up was a job where I took a shower at the end of the day, working at the farm, working at the ranch, working as a chimney sweep to pay my way through college. And as an entrepreneur and as a business leader and as a governor, like I said, we know how Biden is overreaching. And so we're running against Joe Biden. And that's the message we're trying to carry to the American public, because right now, when Biden is talking and the cable channels are talking about the past, whether it's indictments or elections, we're not talking about the issues facing us. Particularly, we're not talking about the Cold War we're having with China. Mm-hmm. We're in this Cold War with China. We're in a cyber war with China, and the open border we have. China, not just China, but China, Syria, Iraq. When I was down at the border 3 weeks ago, 94 different countries had come across the border in that 130-mile segment, including a number that are on our terrorist watch list. So any minute that's being talked about the past is not talking about Biden, his abysmal record on the economy, energy, national security, and that's why we're running.
All right. We're going to have to leave it there. I wish we had more time, Governor, but I'm sure we'll have you back on, and we're going to be following your progress in this campaign. North Dakota Governor and 2024 presidential candidate, Doug Burgum. Thank you so much for being with us, sir.